Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is my third video, so just to do a quick recap. First video was resume tips personal heading. Second video was resume tips education section. And then this video is the resume tips with the experience section. So the experience section typically falls under your education section, and the way it can look varies depending on what you're applying for, what your skill sets are. So some people will have various headings in their experience section. They may have professional experience, relevant experience, work experience, leadership experience. If you're applying for something specific, like you're applying for a specific technical position, may have technical experience. So it really just depends on what you're applying for and how you'd like to have your resume set up to market yourself and your skills. The most popular heading, I would say, would be either work experience or professional experience. Included in your work experience section, you would, of course, talk about your experiences. So this is the part of your resume where you talk about the current position that you're in, if you're currently in one, and all of the experiences that you've had in the past. So resumes, typically we say one page. If you have a lot of work experience or you've been out in the field for a bit, then it can be more than a page, but you definitely want to be very, very strategic about the positions that you decide to include on your resume, because your resume is going to be like real estate. You kind of want to make sure you're putting the correct experiences in the correct locations, because you want to make sure you're presenting yourself well to these employers, if that makes sense. For each one of your experiences within your heading. So for instance, let's say we are working under a heading in the experience section that says professional experience. So if we're going to talk about your first experience, for each one of your experiences, you want to make sure you include 4 pieces of information. So 1, the name of the company or organization that you were a part of, the location, and that would be the city and the state, the time frame from which you worked from that location. So it could be from, to give example, from like January 2018 to March 2019, or it could be January 2018 to current or to present if you're still working there. And then also you want to make sure to include your position title, whatever your role was while you were in that specific organization. After you've included all of that information, then you would want to include your bullet points. And the bullet points are what we would call accomplishment statements, or your experience content. So this is where you would actually talk about what you did while you were in these positions. What did you do? What were the skills that you used? What was the impact that you made? So we do have a formula that we say that you can use. So for your bullet points, the formula would be to start off with a strong action verb, then to go into the skills that you use or your actual experience, and then follow that up with the results. What was the results, or what was the outcome? And so you would do that for each one of your bullet points. And in doing so, you will talk about your experience in a way that it showcases your skills. You're telling them about your experience, and you're also giving them an outcome or a result if there was one. Now, there may not always be one, and that's perfectly okay. But if there is one, you want to make sure that you don't forget or leave that out. So just to take a look at some examples, I have one here, and it says, multitask by conducting monetary transactions such as returns, exchanges, cashing checks, money orders, and money transfers while interacting with customers and fellow colleagues. So this sounds like someone who works as a customer service representative, or they're a cashier, they work in some sort of retail, or maybe a bank, something to that effect. But you can tell what the skills were that they used. It looks like that person has some type of skills with handling money. They're able to do a lot of things at one time. They have attention to detail. They know how to communicate, because they're doing all of these things. They're obviously working with people. So just some things to kind of think through when you're developing your accomplishment statements, which is what we call the bullet points again. So you can make sure that you're thoroughly talking about your skills and your experiences. Again, the experience section can look very different based on what you're applying for. So your headings can vary. I would say if you wanted to apply to a position, let's say for instance you're in finance and you want to apply to a finance position, then it might be easy for you to have a section in your experience, a heading under your experience section that says finance experience. If you have quite a few financial experiences, and then you talk about them in that section. Or if you have experiences that are kind of various, but if they are relevant to what you're applying to, you can have a relevant experience section and kind of include the experiences that are relevant to that position. And then you can also have a separate section that says like professional experience. And it would be like all of the other experiences that you've had that also allowed you the opportunity to use and develop good skills that might be good for this job. So this is pretty much the experience section in a nutshell. Again, make sure you include the 4 pieces of information in each one of your experiences. So include the organization name, the location, city and state, the date when you work there. So it would be month, year to month, year, or month, year to current or present if you're still currently working there, and the position, title or role that you held while you were there. Again, you'll notice your resume, the bulk of your resume will probably be your experience section, and that's a really important piece of your document. The other sections that we'll probably talk about are like your skills and interest section. Really optional, not something that's required, but we'll talk about that in the next video. At formatting wise, with your experience section, you still want to follow reverse chronological order, so most recent experiences going down. So we talked about that in the education section. You want to follow that through. With your experience section, another thing to note is as you're talking about your experiences, I mentioned having a strong action verb. Please try to stay away from verbiage like responsible for, or duties include, or worked as, or worked with, because that's very passive. It doesn't tell anyone what the skills were that you actually used. So maybe switch up your verbiage. Instead of saying responsible for, spearheaded, managed, led. Use some strong, powerful verbs that the employer will look at and say, oh, this is somebody I think I might be curious to know more about. And a lot of times, being that employers typically only look at the resume for a couple of seconds, they're really just going to scan. And if they see a lot of responsible for, duties include, that's really not going to grab their attention, and they're probably going to pass it over to the next pile. Happens a lot. So you definitely want to make sure that, and then also in thinking about your experience section, make sure that you tailor your resume and that you are not passing out the same resume to different organizations and apply for different positions, because they may be looking for a different set of skills. One key piece of advice I would recommend is, as you're applying for things, and it's going to be a little time consuming, but take a look at the job description that you're interested in. highlight the skills that they're asking for. Make sure to demonstrate those skills in your resume. You may have to do that for each resume that you send out. Just because, number one, most employers use, I think it's the applicant tracking system, and it goes directly through there. And if it doesn't pull up any of the keywords that employer is looking for, your resume is not even going to make it to that employer's desk or that manager's desk for review. So you definitely want to make sure you are tailoring your resume for the position that you're applying to, and just not sending the same resume out to a whole bunch of different companies. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the experience section. Again, stay tuned for the next video. We'll talk about skills and interest section, and then I'll provide some overview over the formatting of your resume, as well as the content and structure of it, just to kind of tie everything up. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a great weekend.